Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Sakshi and in this video we are going to talk about Composting 101. How to start composting at home as an absolute beginner. Composting has been one of my favorite things to learn over the last year. How to turn my kitchen waste into this super rich, nutritious food for my plants. How to transform the things that I throw away as garbage into this valuable resource that is called black gold. Now, I am quite a lazy person and I don't like things that are very complicated, probably why my dating life is non-existent. But I can assure you that composting is easy, simple, does not require a whole lot of time, money, effort or space. And if you're someone who cares about reducing the amount of waste you generate, quite possibly why you are here watching this video interested in composting, then composting can actually take care of as much as 70% of our total waste. And personally, composting my kitchen and garden waste and saying no to single-use plastic and switching over from single-use disposable plastic pads to menstrual cups and cloth pads takes care of as much as 85 to 90%, even more than that during some months, of the waste that I produce, which is huge and it doesn't take a lot. Alright, so this guide is going to be divided into two parts. Part 1, this video, is going to talk about how to set up your compost unit and system, how to prepare your compost bin, what should be added or not added into your compost, and how to compost, how to go over the process of composting. Part 2, video number 2, which will come later on, is going to talk about how do you know when your compost is ready, how to harvest your compost, what can go wrong, some troubleshooting, what can go wrong and what to do about that, some frequently asked questions. All of that will be covered in the part 2. Okay, so let's begin learning how to set up your compost bin, your compost unit and system. If you go online and search for a composter, you would find a huge range of options, different sizes, different materials, different techniques. But personally, as a beginner, I have found them to be quite costly and confusing, especially because I could easily DIY my compost bin. It is easy, it is cheap, and it works wonderfully. So, a compost bin has 3 parts. You have your bin, a tray, and a lid. Now, the bin can be anything. You can use old buckets, paint buckets, dustbins, you can use matkas, pots, just look around you. Anything that can hold your waste can be used as a bin. The most important point about your bin is this. There are different types of compost techniques. There are different types of composting. The one we are learning in this video is your aerobic composting. As the name suggests, this is the composting process that happens in the presence of air that needs oxygen. So, the important point about your compost bin is it needs to have these holes. If you can see the bin, I have made so many holes in the side. So it needs to have a lot of holes around it, around the sides, as well as you can see over here, as well as at the bottom. The holes around the sides are for air circulation, so it can have good aeration. The holes in the bottom are so that the leachate or the excess liquid can release out of your compost bin. See, we are going to, when we put the wet waste, the greens that we are going to add to our compost, when they decompose, they have water content, right? When they decompose, they release liquid. Some of that liquid is soaked by your grounds, but sometimes there is excess liquid as well, depending on the water content of the kind of greens you are adding. So, when there is excess liquid, you want that liquid to release out, to move out of your compost bin. You don't want it to get collected in your compost bin. That is going to interfere with aeration as well as create stink. So, you want that excess liquid to release out of your bin. We need those bottom holes for that to happen. That leads us to our second part, which is the tray. You can use anything as a tray as long as it can sit properly under your bin. Now, the tray is where that excess liquid, which is called leachate, will get collected. This leachate is not a waste, it is a very good fertilizer for your plants. So all you need to do is take, whenever you see that leachate, it's not always going to be there, but when it is there, when you have leachate, take 1 part leachate and add 10 parts water to that. So 1:10. 1 part leachate, 10 part water, mix that and use it to fertilize your plants. Your plants are going to love it. Now the third part is our lid. We don't want any unwanted rodents, lizards, birds, insects, flies, rain to enter our compost. So it is very important to cover it with a lid. Notice my lid doesn't have any holes because I don't want anything else entering. I have enough holes in the sides for good aeration. So we need the lid. Now we are a family of 4. So this bin takes 1 to 1.5 months for us to fill 85% of. How big a bin you take depends on your waste generation. Now I have 3 of these compost units. I have a 3-unit system. So it takes 1 to 1.5 months to fill 1 bucket. When this bucket will fill up, I will start the second bucket. When the second bucket fills up, 85%, I will start the third bucket. Now, your compost, your waste takes 1 to 1.5 months after you stop putting anything new into that. 1 to 1.5 months to decompose, and then you would want to give it another month to mature. So by the time my third bucket is full, this first bucket has had those 2 month time to be ready. So this bucket, the compost in this bucket is ready for harvest. I'm just going to take that out and start this bucket again. So this is how the cycle goes. You want to select the space where you're going to put your compost bins. That space needs to have good air circulation. It shouldn't have a lot of rainfall or a lot of harsh sun. That's it. And you really don't need to worry about pests moving out of your compost bin or it stinking. A compost, when things are going right, compost does not stink. It does not stink all around. You really need to open it and then you would get some smell, but it doesn't stink bad in the surroundings. And the pest, as long as things are going right in the bin, your pests won't come out, because this is the environment that you give it. The compost is an environment they thrive in. They wouldn't want to leave that environment. They shouldn't want to leave that environment. Okay, now let's learn what are the greens and the browns, what are the things that you add in your compost and what you should not be adding to your compost. Okay, so a compost has 5 basic components: greens, browns, air, water, and microorganisms. The greens are the organic waste that comes out of your kitchen, your garden. This is your wet waste. This adds nitrogen to your compost, which is used as a source of protein by the microorganisms. Browns are the dry matter. This adds carbon to your compost, and that is used as an energy source by your microorganisms. Some options for greens are fruit peels, vegetable scraps, tea leaves and coffee grounds, rotten food, cooked leftovers that have gone bad, your puja flowers, deheaded flowers, weeds and any prunings that you get from your garden, all your eggshells, all of these are options, great options for your greens. Now, a few points to remember when you think about the greens is, if you have cooked leftovers, if they are okay, a better idea would be to feed them to the stray animals, cows, street dogs, cats, all of them instead of wasting them in compost. If those cooked leftovers have gone bad, then you can add them to your compost. If you have chai, I love chai. So if you have chai and you add milk to that, and there's no chai without milk, but yeah, if you add milk to that, it's a good idea to rinse it a couple of times. The leaves, rinse them a couple of times before adding them to your compost. If you use tea bags, then don't add your tea bag to your compost. It has traces of microplastic, it has plastic. So open the bag, just put the tea leaves into your compost bin, not the bag. Then citrus peels, your lemon peels, mossambi, orange peels, all of them, they small quantities of them once in a while is okay, but huge quantities of them make the compost acidic, too acidic. And anyways, citrus peels have so many better uses. For example, you can make bioenzymes, which are a great fertilizer and pesticide for your plants. You can also use bioenzymes as all sorts of cleaners, floor cleaners, dishwasher, hand wash, body wash, all of that. You can pickle your citrus peels. You can dry your citrus peels and turn them into your face scrub and your utensil cleaners and all of that. So citrus peels have better uses. Instead of adding them to compost, try and using them in those ways. Eggshells are such a great addition to your compost. They are such a good source of calcium, which if you want to grow tomatoes, they work very, very, very well. But if you're adding eggshells, then crush them up. You can even put them in the mixer grinder and grind them up and then add to your compost bin. In fact, whatever you are adding to your compost, if you have time, if you can do that, just chop them, all of them, into smaller pieces. Smaller the pieces are, the faster the decomposition will be. Now, don't add large quantities of oil, fat, to grease to your compost bin. Don't add poop of your carnivorous pets to your bin, to your compost. Your dog poop, cat poop, none of that. Okay, now some options for your browns. Dry leaves are the best option for the browns, but you want the leaves to be dry enough that when you crush them in your hands, they just completely become turn into these smaller pieces. If you, like me, do not have this huge garden that can supply you with dry leaves all the time, then what you can do is you can go out for leaf hunting. You can go out during the seasons like autumn and winter when you get more dry leaf supply. You can fill bags from roadside, public parks, schools, anywhere you find stalks of dry leaves. You can ask your neighbors if they have gardens that have dry leaves and they don't compost. You can ask your neighbors to help you with them. So be shameless about that. Stock them up. 2 or 3 bags, big kattas full will go for months. So yeah, stock them up whenever you get them. Now, second option, which is what I am using right now ever since pandemic began, because I don't feel comfortable or safe collecting leaves from public spaces now. So what I use is I use sawdust. For sawdust, you don't have to worry about dryness. It is as dry as it comes. But you do need to make sure that the sawdust you are sourcing is from a place, sawdust from untreated wood, not from plywood, which is treated by chemicals. So I am lucky, I have a local shop that works with untreated wood, solid wood, and I just go to them, give them my bag, they fill it up with the burada, and I have a supply for months. Now the next one would be, if none of the other two are available, next one would be cocoa husk, which is something that again I use because it is easily available. It is just the husk you get out of coconuts you buy, the brown coconuts you buy, or cocoa peat, which is something you would need to buy, but again it is a very good option for your compost. Next would be hay, nut casings, your moongfali वगैरह के छिलके, then dry twigs, the absolute last option that I will discourage you to use, but yes, it is an option if nothing else is available, is paper and cardboard. Paper and cardboard are a very valuable resource that is completely recyclable. So it is a better idea to give them out for recycling so that more trees are not cut to make more paper and cardboard, right? What is the use of composting at home if we are just going to promote deforestation? So don't use paper and cardboard if you can help it, but if you really need to use them, make sure that they are not printed, they do not have ink on them, because especially if you're going to use your compost for edible plants, you do not want those chemicals in your compost and then transferring to your plants. Okay, so these are some options for your greens and browns. Now let's take a look. Now let's learn how to actually go over how to actually start a compost. So the first step is we are going to make a layer of browns. Whatever you're using as brown. So I'm going to just all of these and make a layer, a maybe 2-inch or 3-inch layer of browns at the base. So when I'm just starting that, I'm going to add that. Next, this is my today's waste, and I'm going to add that waste to the bin. Alright, now once I have added my waste, I am going to add my browns. Now something I also like to do over here is, usually what I do is I take my greens and my browns, mix them together and then add that to my compost bin. Sometimes I layer. So both of them are options, whichever feels more convenient to you, go with that. Now since I'm just starting this bin, I want to introduce some microorganisms to it. So I'm going to take some of this old maturing compost and add that to this bin. And there are some accelerators, or there are some ways you introduce microorganisms to your bin. One of the ways is using curd. So I'm going to add just this amount of curd into this. You can also add sour buttermilk or good jaggery to your compost as an accelerator or as a way to introduce microorganisms to your compost bin. If you're using buttermilk, then don't add it into large quantities, just 2 or 3 tablespoons is enough. And you can add your accelerators every 10 days to after every 2 weeks if you want. I usually don't do that because I have enough pests in that, and I'm not really in a hurry to use the compost as fast as I can. But if you want to, you can add accelerators to this regularly. So just adding the yogurt to this, and this is it. We are just going to give it a mix. And that's all. Cover it with your lid and you are done for the day. So every day I mix my greens and the browns, add that to my compost. That's it. After 2 or 3 days, you would want to just mix them up nicely. And once in a week, you want to turn the pile fully. So that is important. Once for the first month, while you are adding more stuff to this pile especially, you are going to every week, once a week, just take something like the spatula or a fork or something like that and turn the pile really nicely. So the things that are at the bottom come up, the things that are up, they go to the bottom. You want to turn the pile very nicely, fully, properly. That does 2 things. It takes the fresh waste towards the bottom where more microorganisms are, and it helps with aeration. That aeration, regular aeration, is so important. It will also help you see what is happening in your compost, what exactly is happening in there. Is the compost going wet, going too dry? So you can adjust according to that. The ratio for your greens and the browns that I prefer and that I would suggest is keep it equalish. So 1:1 or 1:2 in terms of greens and browns, and adjust it depending on if your compost is too wet, add more browns. If it is too dry, decrease the amount of browns and have more greens. So start with 1:1 and then adjust according to how your compost is going, because that depends on your weather as well. After a month, you can decrease the frequency of aeration, decrease the frequency of turning the pile. So instead of every week, you can do it every 10 days or 12 days. And in the third month or in the second month after you have stopped adding things to this pile, you might want to do it maybe once in 15 days or once a month. Okay. Another thing is, you do not want it to fill more than 85%. So when you stop adding more things to this pile, it should only be 85% full, not more than that. Also, don't worry about the pests and the worms. You don't need to add them to this aerobic composting. We do add worms in vermicomposting. In this one, you don't need to add extra worms. They will come on their own. And when you see them there in your pile, I want you to think about this, that these worms, these pests, these are the ones transforming my waste into a valuable resource, into food for my plants. See if you can just move past or look past how gross they look, the wriggly beings, and really think about all the work that they are doing for your benefit. So I hope all of this info helps you in starting your own compost as soon as possible. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave your questions down in the comments below so I can include those questions in my part 2. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe the video. All of your comments, your likes, your subscriptions, your shares, they help a lot, they mean a lot. Stay tuned for part 2, and till then, take care. I'll see you soon.